but at
Mhm.
least you didn't come empty-handed.
Right.
And you're saying that's the exact way that CEOs should be thinking, or they are thinking.
Right. Anytime anyone is planning on making a pitch to someone or a presentation, you have to understand your audience. You have to think about what questions might they ask, what knowledge do they have that you don't have, where might they try to poke a hole in your idea. And so you always have to think about your audience, whether it's public speaking, asking for a raise, asking for a promotion, changing jobs, going on an interview. You have to prepare by thinking about your audience and thinking what questions might they ask and what do they know that I don't know.
That's interesting. Now, for those that are not familiar, including myself, between life coaching and performance coach, can you establish the difference between these two and how these two affect the personal and the professional growth?
Yeah. So I would say, when performance coaching is usually pretty target based, it's very, like I said before, it's I want to manage my time better, or maybe it's how do I deal with difficult people, or maybe it is how do I ask for a promotion. And not that I'm going to provide those answers to them. We work on it together. I don't have the answer, but I also, a lot of coaching mentality is I don't have the answer as the coach, but the client has the answer. Sometimes the client does have the answer. Oftentimes, we discover together during our conversation, we discover what the answer is between the two of us. Neither one of us actually held it in our minds, but at some point we discovered it together along the way. So, in that, performance coaching is very target based on a specific skill or a specific goal that they might be looking for. Life coaching tends to be broader. And so it might be, how do I get out of my way when, like, why am I stopping myself from achieving anything? Why am I having so many problems with my family or my spouse or my coworkers? And so they're really, it's, it's a little bit funny because in performance coaching, there's uh, a very specific goal, but the solution tends to be rather broad. And in life coaching, whereas the question or the problem might be very broad, the solution is very focused.
Wow. So that's very interesting. Now, you know, everybody knows about Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan, is the biggest or the best basketball of all time. If depends on who you're talking to, and he always emphasized the importance of having a coach. He even have a personal coach that
Mhm.
was coaching him personally. For those of people that think that, well, what do I need a coach for? Already an executive. I'm a CEO of a Fortune 500 companies. What do you say to these people?
Well, that's a really interesting question because I always ask an executive. I say, okay, who's your coach? Like, who is your coach? Right? Do you have a coach? And they say no. Like you said, they're like, no, I don't have one. I've already achieved excellence. I'm at the top of my
Right.
game. Like, okay. And to your point, Michael Jordan, he was very, very good, talent wise, just raw talent. But he continued to excel, and he always had, whether it was Phil Jackson or whoever his coach was in the NBA or even earlier in college. And like you said, he also had his own personal coaches. He would not have won those championships without a coach. He would have been a very good ball player, but he never would have won a championship. Nobody's going to win a championship without a coach in sports. It's actually impossible, right? If you want to win in a team sport, you have to have a coach to get there. And I
And
would say, as
this
an
is no different
executive,
too, right?
yeah, as an executive, if you want to win the championship, you can be excellent. You can be very, very good at your sport, at your game, at your role. But if you really want to excel to championship level, you have to have a coach.
Yeah, it's a lot of a lot of people make the analogy that business is a sport, even though we're looking
Mhm.
at it differently. But you're looking at the CEOs. A lot of the packages they're receiving. It's the same way as a basketball player is receiving a contract, a 5-year deal, 10-year
Mhm.
deal. and how many millions they're receiving. It's a contract, and they have to perform. A lot of the times, those contracts are contingent of their performance, and a lot of time we may be thinking that, well, I performed in the past, I can continue of performing, on a higher level, and it's not necessarily true. Now, do you have? I mean, can you share with us any success story as far as somebody have you have worked with, and you took them from that's always already successful? Because a lot of time it's a lot harder to convince or to persuade, I should say, somebody that's already have some success or somebody that's really successful, but that could either 2x their success or 3x their success if they were working a coach, because you can really harness the power they have already have within them, and then get them to the next level.
Right. Well, I do. Yeah, I've got a couple of stories. So, one client I was working with, they were already a successful. They work in the financial planning world, and they were doing very well. But they really wanted to break into a whole new level of earning, and they knew they could do it, but they knew that they also had things that were getting in their way. And we worked together for 6 months, and they were able to break through to that new level. And now, could they have done it without me? We don't know. Did it
Right.
happen through coaching with me? Yes, it did. Did I see breakthroughs where they saw things in a different way? They uh, took different perspective in certain areas. Um, they took chances that they didn't take before. And when you add up all those little things, they add up to meeting the goal that you want to meet. And in this case, it did work for them very well. So, we're super excited about that. Another client, also a wealth manager, was wanted to came with the very simple task of how do I manage my time better. Which I laugh at, because we all have that question, right? How do I
Right.
manage my time better?
It's one of the most
And that's
common.
Yeah, and that's what they wanted. They wanted to manage their time better. Funny thing was, after about a month and a half of working together, we they took the path far away from time management. Every once in a while, we would go back and revisit that, but they found the coaching that we did together so valuable, it changed the way they lived their personal life. They're still doing great
Wow.
in their financial side. They're doing great, but they changed the way they actually approach their relationship with their wife, with their kids, with with the way he drives his car. Like,
Wow.
everything changed through coaching because he saw things differently. He
Wow.
aligned his values to his actions, or his actions to his values, and it changed the way he approached everything he does in his life.
The old saying, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. I'm guessing that's true, right?
It's totally true.
Now, do you have specific strategies when you work with somebody like that, where the values is on one side and the behavior is completely opposite? What are some of the strategies that you use with someone like this, or with anybody, when it comes to your coaching, performance coaching?
And it's interesting that and I know I mentioned values, and so you're asking about values. Um, when I coach with somebody, they bring the agenda, they bring everything. I am there as a second brain. I am there as a guide holding a flashlight, helping them see things they don't necessarily see, shining the light in various places of the path so that they can see different things. Um, but we always want to start with a values assessment. What values do they have? Because once you know what your values are, that's when you can start. No matter, like you had said, their actions don't line up with their values, but maybe they do. But we won't know until we map out what your values are. Then we can say, okay, you did this. What values or value did you align with to make you decide to do that thing? And they can look back and look at them and go, I don't see it. I don't see it. Maybe it was this. We don't know. So ordinarily, you can find why you did something because it tied to a value. So you might have a value of justice or family or making money could be a value. That might be one of your values. Um, and you make a decision to do something, and you might have said, well, I love my family, and I want to make sure they spend time with them, but I also know that I have to provide for them. So money took over, and you didn't spend time with them. You did the 20 hours of overtime or whatever the thing was. So ultimately it was to meet your family's value, but in the moment it was because you needed to make money. So maybe that's not a great example, but you can always tie it back to a value. And it will help you make future decisions, because now that you're aware of what they are, you can say, oh, this aligns with this. So whether it's right or wrong, good or bad, it doesn't
Right.
matter, because you are aware the things that you did
Right.
align to your values, and that makes it okay.
Now, do you find sometimes somebody's value could be related or attached to their upbringing, the way they were brought up, their experiences as a kid?
Oh, for sure. Almost everything that we hold deep inside of our hearts or our minds is going to be tied back to how we grow up, how we were raised. Certainly it's going to be cultural, it's going to be family. Those kinds of things are those are the deepest ingrained things that we have. Can we learn along the way from reading a book or having an experience? Absolutely.
And,
So
and,
it's
and I'm
both.
guessing that's where coaching become fundamental or critical, because if they could solve those issues within those values they have within them since they were 2 years old and now they are 40,
Mhm.
without outside help, because a lot of time people feel ashamed of looking for help, feeling that they may be weak if they hire a coach.
Mhm.
So during your session, you know, coaching or mentoring or counseling, because it sounds like there's a lot of psychology involved into
For
those
sure.
sessions. How do you make sure that you get and receive feedback to make sure that the results are lasting results?
Right. Well, first of all, let me dispel any myths. Even though I do have a degree in psychology, I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. I don't do that. When I'm coaching, I'm coaching. And if I know that a client, if I hear from a client that it sounds like maybe they could benefit from therapy of some sort, I'll always ask, are you seeing a therapist?